Good evening. Welcome. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Thank you guys for waiting. Looking forward to seeing what we get into tonight. Hope you guys are having a great week. I'm having a good week. Always good to see a few people in here. If this is your first time joining, welcome. This is a place where we take calls for a couple hours. We'll be here. We have no idea who's going to be calling in. That's kind of the charm of this, is that we will listen to anyone with any story they want to share, or any difficulty they're going through, or any confession, anything they want to get off their chest, so long as you follow certain guidelines we have here, like remain anonymous. It's for your own good, and it's for the sake of the whole community too, not just yourself. So as long as you remain anonymous and we don't get political or ideological, we will hear you out. So excited to dive in. I'm getting phone lines opened right now. And there's not too much to announce tonight, so we are going to dive in pretty quickly. I'm just waiting on the lines to open. I've got a hair on my microphone. Goodness. Also, I'm curious. I'm getting calls right now, but I'm going to wait a second. I do want to ask a question. We're always tinkering here with this format. There's not really anything like this that I've seen on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of places where people can call and get support on live streams on YouTube and other platforms like Twitch. But this is I haven't seen anything quite like Anonymous Live, where, with the anonymity and with the depth of conversation we get into. So there's really no rule book for how to do this. I'd like to add, I think we finally found a happy medium with this camera angle. That is one thing I wanted to touch on. Last week was way too close. You guys wanted it closer. And so I moved the camera closer, but it was just way too close last time. I just felt like it was inappropriately close. So it is now a happy medium, but I do maintain, I think the original camera angle was more pleasing, more aesthetically, more symmetrical, we'll say. I think this is a good medium, though. So I would like feedback on if you guys think this is a good distance. We try to keep the focus on the callers here. It's not about my face. So this is actually the same camera setup we used for the last prank stream. So I might just leave it right here. This feels like pretty good distance no matter what we're doing. Also want to touch on, I'm going to be toying around with some palate cleansing techniques between the calls. I wonder if that would be interesting to you guys. Not like jokes or anything necessarily, but just instead of going directly into calls, I'm not going to stand here and wait for responses. I'll check them later. But thinking about introducing some elements between the calls just to kind of give everybody a second to kind of palate cleanse. So let me know what you think about that. And with that, I should have taken those callers that were coming in, because I started talking and now there's no calls. So we'll wait here for the calls to pick back up. But I did want to get some feedback on that. So if you have any thoughts on anything I just said, go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will read back into the chat later. And calls are coming back in. We're going to take our first caller. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling.
Did I just get on this live stream?
Yeah, you're here. Thanks for calling.
Oh my, dude, Julian, this is fucking crazy. Okay, okay, before I tell you what I want to talk about, I first need to just let you know that I'm a filmmaker, and I found your videos in middle school, and it was there was a really, really clear moment where I was oh, I want to be a filmmaker. And I just remember calling my best friend at the time, being this is what I'm gonna do, because we were obsessed with your videos. But anyway, you should know, I am a filmmaker, and I'm definitely a filmmaker because of you. So just fucking crazy.
That. Very kind. I appreciate that.
So, okay, my sister has a wedding next week, and she's in New Jersey, and in Utah.
Oh. No locations. No locations. Uh, uh, Goodness. That was a rough start. Do you know the rules here?
Oh no, I didn't know that you can't say location.
Toast. I'm sorry, my friend. You were so sweet and supportive. I hate to toast you, but you said a location. I want to encourage you to call back. Please, everybody, read the rules before calling in. Uh, it's nothing personal, my friend. Please, like I said, please call back and omit your name and location. Don't say any of that stuff, and we'll talk as long as you want. I toasted you just in case. It's for your own. Uh, it's in your own interest. In case you don't want, we don't know what you're going to get into. We have a rule here called toast. It's pretty much the only rule where if you give up your name or location, I hang up. So that's what happened. It didn't sound like you were familiar with the rules. I hate to toast you, especially because you were so supportive. But that's how toast works. That's toast count 1. Like I said, please call back. You sounded very sweet. I'd like to hear you, but I want to hear you without any names or locations of anybody involved with the story. We don't want to implicate others in what you're going to share. That's kind of the point. Sorry to do that. Okay. Lines are opening again. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi. Wow, you picked up this time. It's crazy.
Sometimes I pick up. Can you turn your speakers off? I'm getting some feedback.
First off, honestly, I just want to thank you for all of your content that you've posted over the years. As a kid, I really cherished that stuff. It was like a good time in all the bad times.
I appreciate that. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, no problem. So I've been having some interpersonal issues with the mother of my child.
Oh.
And they have been kind of pre-existing since before we had my daughter. And I just kind of wanted to bounce those off of you and see if I'm like the problem or if it's just like, bad match type thing.
Well, I'm happy to listen. The chat and I are happy to listen. We can't guarantee we can get to the bottom of who's who. I mean, interpersonal dynamics are obviously very complicated. So, they're. I'm not. I want to hear you talk, but when I'm giving you a preamble on like I can't. None of us can fix you here. We're happy to listen and spitball with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I'm just really just searching for like more like different opinions and
Great.
trying to collect basically an average of what everybody thinks, what I think about it, and see if I can come to some type of realization with different information.
Right. Can we start with your age?
3.
All I heard was 3, and I know that's not true. I know you're not 3 years old.
No, I'm dumb. I'm 23.
23. Okay, that makes much more sense. Okay, so and you're having some co-parenting issues. What's the deal? Are you married or what's the deal?
No. We've been together for going on 5 years now. And I personally have always felt like it was super reactive between me and her. Like if I were to say, hey, can you like go do that thing for me or like go do the dishes or whatever, it was always a huge issue. And it's kind of like gotten to the point now where I have no tolerance for it, but at the same time I'm trying to stick around and give my daughter a double parent home, which is pretty vital aspect of growing up with a proper mindset.
Right. So did you just say that your daughter is that you and your partner are no longer together and your daughter's living in 2 different homes?
No, we're still together, but she's basically been on the way out, and I'm just kind of like I don't have parents or really anyone that I can bounce anything off of, so I have a real hard time asking people for advice.
I see. I'm getting some feedback. Do you have speakers on? Can you turn those off?
Yeah, sorry.
Is
that better?
So, yeah, just turn them off. Okay, it'll cause feedback.
Okay.
So so it sounds like the relationship was good at first, but now it's in a place where you you make what you think are reasonable requests, and then your partner gets upset.
Yeah, well, just kind of like get an attitude, or disproportionate. Like I could see it being like, you're slightly annoyed by something or whatever, but to get angry over me asking you to do something, I've always kind of thought that was a little off.
Right. So I'm assuming you're not calling about the dishes. It seems like a great starting example, but how deep does this go?
It really goes as far as to, like, I'll try to tell her how I feel about things, like this is just how I feel. I don't really want to give you an explanation as to why. It's just how I feel, and to be basically turning a blind eye, or even as going as far as to just not caring at all, like basically telling me I don't care.
So it seems like she's just kind of careless now. Is that what I'm hearing? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it affecting is there affection in the relationship? Is there respect in the relationship? It sounds like you respect her.
Affection, yes, but I think the main thing is the respect. I don't feel like I get treated the way that I should be, and that might be, a personal issue of mine, or it could actually be, me not being treated right.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that you used to have I can't remember exactly how you put it, but you mentioned that initially you had some kind of grace for this stuff, but that grace has kind of worn thin, and that you don't have a very high tolerance for that kind of treatment anymore. What does that look like? Like, what is your lack of tolerance? How do you respond?
So like when she'll do said thing to me, now it's like I don't have the patience to sit there and say, hey, like, look, what you're doing right now is like, it's making me feel bad. I would like for you to not be so reactive, and now it's just like, I get out of my face, type thing. And it's not always like that, and that's the thing that gets me, is that it's always so flip flop. It's like she cares about me, and then the next second she doesn't.
How does this affect your co-parenting, or does it? Could you guys co-parent effectively, or is it complicated?
I think that as a baseline, it makes me upset, and it puts me in a bad spot just right from the start. To know that the person that I had a kid with, is not there like I'm there, and is not willing to put in the effort. And I'm trying to give her the chance, and I know I'm also not perfect, with all of that type of stuff. I tend to have a pretty big temper now, and that's due to that patience loss. I get tired of asking for the same thing over and over again, and I'll get real short-tempered, and that's not healthy. And I'm trying to do the right thing for my kid, regardless of what's happening to me or to my co-partner.
Right.
And I don't know what would, work better, is keep trying, or just cut it off and hope that she comes back around and is a good mother. I just don't really know.
Is it affecting the way you're raising your kid? Is it affecting your co-parenting?
Yeah, I'm pretty irritable all the time because of it, and I try to not let it get like to my daughter, but like if she's flinching, teeth clenched, and I'm just like, this is not good for anybody, and I need to, because I had previous anger issues. As a kid, I used to get beat, and among various other things. So it's like coming back, because I'm having to deal with a whole bunch of other people's stuff.
Right.
And I'm really not trying to have that go to my kid.
Right.
I want to give her the best life possible and stop a lot of the trauma that happened with me at me.
Are you guys in agreement on stuff? Are you in agreement on the ways that you parent? I guess what I'm asking about with the co-parenting is, do you guys share a philosophy, or do you have differences in how? Do you have differences in opinions in day-to-day life with your kid? Or are there any? Is this like, I'm trying to figure out, like, you've got a kid with this person. How does it feel parenting with, like, how does it feel raising your kid? Like, I'm not so much asking, like, how does because everybody fights, of course. Everybody has fights. Fights happen. People are people. People have limited context. People don't have each other's perspective. That's what's beautiful about life. And everybody fights from time to time. Explosions happen. What matters is how we deal with those explosions. So I'm not so much asking, like, has your kid seen you guys fight? I'm asking, like, are you guys unified in the way that you raise your kid? Does it feel organic?
I see. That's a hard, because I feel like, yes, mostly that we have similar, outlooks on it and the way that we want her raised, but there's, like, the few differences they're pretty big. I was kind of raised on the fact that if someone steps on you and you ask them politely to not do that, and then they do it again, you don't put up with that type of behavior, and you stick up for other people that are also, like, being bullied and that type of thing. I was raised to not have tolerance for people's bad behavior.
Right.
But her, on the other hand, she never really had to go through that with her parents, or never had that experience with bullies, because her parents weren't pushing her to act that way. It's like the ideals of how people raise their kids. That's one main thing. And the other one is just about, where she's going in life. Like, I just want to be there for her no matter what, even if it's, you want to be a hippie on a commune and go live off the land. Like, I'm there for you, like, that's how I look at it. And she wants something a little bit more tailored to, her experience.
So it sounds like you're saying that it sounds like you're mentioning a fair amount of difference in the way you want to raise your kids. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, like, when you look at the core values of it, I'd say, yeah, those are pretty big things.
That's what it sounds like. So now I'm going somewhere with this. I'm just trying to get some information before I start. You're asking for opinions, and I don't like to just dole those out. I mean, I don't know you,
Right.
I don't want to, like, ruin your life or anything.
I understand.
And of course, even with context, I'm only sharing opinions. But I'm curious, like, you mentioned you don't have parents. Why is that? What caused there to be is there a reason your parents aren't in your life? Are your parents still living, or was there a falling out, or what happened?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to zip compress this file into a smaller size. So I was adopted to start off with. My real mom and my real dad. My real dad's in prison. And when my mom had me, she had a plethora of things that were wrong with her. Hep C, HIV positive, a whole bunch of stuff like that. I ended up coming out 100% clean. No one knows how. But after I was adopted, my adoptive parents split. And then I had two sets of parents who weren't really my parents. And I also got told that I was adopted when I was 6 years old, with no, like, context or warming up to it. It's just like, hey, you're adopted.
I see.
And I was okay. And then my stepmom from my adoptive dad, was the really abusive one. She used to beat me and sexually abuse me and stuff like that.
Your adopted parents sexually abused you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And that happened earlier on in my life too, a couple times, with different people.
So it sounds like you haven't met your biological parents. Is that right?
I met my mom and that was confusing. That's all that was confusing for me, because I never even really knew a mother, because my adoptive mother and my stepmother were both really abusive towards me.
Right.
So out of the blue came this woman when I was just starting high school, that was my mom, and I didn't know how to wrap my head around that, But up until about 18, I still had my stepmom and my adoptive dad, but he went off the deep end, and I ended up trying to support him for like 2 years while he was doing meth, and one day he offered the pipe to me, and that was when I was like, I can't be here anymore.
Wow. Yeah, so now I'm seeing why you used the term compress the zip file, which I thought that was a funny way to put it, by the way.
I try to be entertaining when
Yeah.
it's a gloomy subject.
Yeah, I like that. I can tell that you've got a good spirit. You sound like an optimist. My friend, like, your story is intense. You've grown up in a lot of turmoil. It sounds like maybe you grew up in a setting where you weren't sure who you could trust. Sounds like a lot of people took advantage of. They just didn't treat you very appropriately. It sounds like there wasn't a lot of tact involved with the people. With your guardians didn't have a lot of tact, and
yeah.
I'm asking about that stuff because you're young and you're a parent. I can tell you care about your kid. I can tell you're confused in your current relationship, and I'm asking about your childhood because a lot of times, and I'm saying this from personal experience, and also from from people I've known, and and also from this chat, this stream we do. We have so many people calling in with stories just like you're sharing, and a common denominator we're finding is that a lot of these stories that we hear on the stream involve people who get attracted to certain personality types based on how their parents were, how they were raised, and what example they saw made for them when they were kids, and makes me wonder. Like, of course, I don't know your partner, but I'm asking about these things because I'm hearing a lot of self-reflection in your voice. I mean, you called in asking for our opinions on whether or not you're a problem, and that was like one of the first things you said, and my answer to that was that like that's never a clean answer. Like, everybody contributes some kind of chaos to a relationship. No relationship is perfectly balanced. So I'm sure that there's things that you do that inflame the situation. I'm sure that because we all do. We all do things that aren't perfect. But what I'm getting at is that the one thing I'm hearing is this self-reflection. You're coming at this with this earnest sense of like, am I the problem here? And it may be the case that your partner isn't treating you well. You mentioned that there's a sense of a lack of respect in the relationship, and you wish that there was more respect. You've talked very respectfully of your partner. You've shared some frustrations about your partner, but all of this has been from the lens of, am I a problem? And if you were to walk into a counseling office or talk to a psychologist and ask them that same question, what they would tell you is, essentially what you're asking is, am I, and I only know this because I've been in a lot of therapy for similar issues. I've known a lot of psychopaths and things, and I've had to do a lot of self-reflection, like, am I the problem? And what I've heard from so many mental health professionals over the years is that if someone is asking that question, that means they feel deep empathy. They feel so much empathy that they're willing to be the problem. And that is not a thought pattern that someone with some kind of mental disorder or, mental roadblock, people with mental roadblocks and disorders can't ask those questions. They can't they can't own fault. It's hard for them to apologize when they've done something wrong. It's hard for them to see fault in themselves. And a lot of these people...
Yeah, because then it shatters their internal reality.
Yeah, and then they get stuck, and people can't change. Because they can't learn from their mistakes. And everybody makes mistakes, but it's this tragedy of some people can't see when they've done something that needs correction. Right. And I don't know. I'm not telling you that you're in that kind of relationship. I don't know if you are, but I am going to recommend a couple books that might help you find more clarity on whether or not you are in a relationship with someone like that. Of course, we can't diagnose anyone here. I'm not qualified to. But I want to recommend a couple books because everything you're saying is questions that get answered in these books I'm going to mention. They're popular books here on this stream. The first one is called Should I Stay or Should I Go? It's written by I'm going to put this in the chat for you, but you can take a note if you want. It's written by Dr. Ramani Deversala. And it's a book about breaking up with a narcissist, but it is useful for all kinds of reasons. For me specifically, it was really cathartic, dealing with, I don't want to get real specific with individuals, but I'll just say that I've known, this one was helpful for me. I want to be careful because I'm not anonymous here, and I don't want to implicate anybody that I know. But you're okay. For me,
forget by the end of the call.
Right. For me, this book was helpful outside of the context of breaking up with a narcissist. I'll say that much.
Okay.
But
like everything, there's things that apply to different places.
Right. I'm saying that because when you look at this book, you're going to see like a lipstick kiss on the artwork. It's like it's applicable to you, but I'm also acknowledging that you may have more than one person in your life that this might shed some light on, especially if you were raised by people that took advantage of you. So I'm putting this in the chat for you. And it's right here. This is a Goodreads link. And then the second book I'm going to recommend is a book called Psychopath Free. This is a book by Jackson McKenzie. And this book this is a great follow-up book to Should I Stay or Should I Go? I'd recommend reading Should I Stay or Should I Go first. And then reading Psychopath Free second. Because Psychopath Free gets a little more broad and more granular all at once somehow. I don't know how this guy, it's such an amazing book. But Psychopath Free also has a questionnaire where it asks you like 30 questions. It's been a hot minute since I've read these books, but I'm pretty sure it's Psychopath Free that has this 30 question questionnaire where if you answer yes to 21 questions, they say you're most likely dealing with a psychopath, and if you answer yes to 25 questions, then you're certainly dealing with a psychopath. So fascinating book. I'm putting this in the chat for you as well.
Okay.
And we've had
I got them written down too here. So.
Okay, great. I hope those books give you some direction and some clarity on what you're dealing with. I'm really sorry to hear what you're up against. I mean, honestly, I hope the answer is no for you. I hope that you're not dealing with something like that, and because being that you have a kid with this with your partner, it would be difficult. It would be challenging to come to terms with that and to deal with that. But if it is the case that it's happening, then these books are going to be a totally new take on life for you that is going to rock your world. So either way, I feel safe making these recommendations.
That's what I need. I just need more perspective on the situation because I know that, you can only see one side of the book most of the time. So I really thank you for that information, and I'll definitely get these books. Unfortunately, I am out of time, and I do believe that other callers would love to have a spot on here.
Great. There's so many things from the chat I want to highlight for you, but
again, I'll give you guys an update after I read those books, and hopefully get in touch with you again. You've been a great help.
There's some things from the chat I wish we had time to mention. Specifically, it seems there's a counselor in the chat that's sharing some things. So at least promise me you're going to go back and read the chat later.
Oh yeah, I'll go back and read through the chat. I mean, this is the first live stream that because I've been listening to you ever since you started it and trying to get a call in.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad we could
So
connect. Thanks for calling.
I'm definitely gonna go through the chats and see what people were saying while I was talking.
Awesome. Thanks for calling. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too.
I keep finding hairs on this microphone. Like I pull them off and then there's another one. Am I balding? What's going on? Okay. Lines are opening again. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi. Hi, Julian. So
Hi.
glad I got through.
Yeah. Good to speak with you.
Yeah, I'm actually a second-time caller.
Oh, okay. So we spoke before?
Yes. Yeah, we have. I guess I would like to, I guess, stay anonymous from that a little bit. But
Right.
if somebody remembers me, I'm not too bothered by that. I guess if you remember the conversation, I'm not too bothered by it. But I'm actually in a different situation that I'd like to talk about.
Okay. What's on your mind?
Well, currently I'm homeless and I'm receiving assistance through an organization that's helping me out, and which I'm very grateful for. And so right now I'm safe, which is good.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I'm conflicted with what, like, I guess what my struggle is. And excuse me, I have you on speaker, but I'm going to change it so that it's not change. Wanted a warning, but I have certain mental disorders that get in the way of me functioning normally. And one of them is I have panic disorder. So I'll have panic attacks regularly. I've had 2 panic attacks today, actually.
Wow.
And I'm like doing my best to, react appropriately, but I was not able to react appropriately when I was having those panic attacks. And I sort of struggle with what I'm, I guess, supposed to do after that. And I think I handled it well in the moment, but it's just, I feel like I'm accidentally putting on a mask right now. I'm just gonna be real. I did not expect to get through, and I'm like.
Well, take a second, collect your thoughts. I don't want you to hang up and then wish you had unmasked. Do you want to take a second and take a couple breaths and collect your thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think really what I want to talk about is that I don't know why my family doesn't want to help me. My sister is younger than me, but she has continuously set some boundaries with me around me talking about emotional things with her. and I don't know if what she's doing is okay or not. I mean, I know it's okay to set boundaries, and I know it's okay even if it doesn't feel good in the moment, and it very much did not feel good for me in the moment to have her set a boundary like that with me. We like throughout our childhood, we were very close. We were pretty much best friends.
Mm.
And I would very much love to live where she's living. And I asked for her help with that. But she doesn't want to let me live with her. I mean, this time around, she told me it wasn't up to her. It was up to our younger brother, who also lives with her. And when I asked him, he said it wasn't okay. And so I'm like, I'm homeless, and I'm trying to, I'm doing my best, and I think this organization is helping me, is going to be okay. But even after I get help and hopefully have my own place and my own income and all of that, even after that, I still want a good relationship with my family. And
Right.
I'm like, I feel like I'm going to have this sort of like resentment towards them for not being, for not wanting to help me, or I'm trying not to see it that way. I'm trying not to see it as if they don't want to help me, but that they just can't. I really, truly, I don't know what to believe, but I truly believe that it's just because they can't and not because they don't want to. But it does feel like they don't want to sometimes, and you know that can hurt, and it does hurt.
I can only imagine. Yeah, you've shared very candidly. You're a little quiet. I'm not sure if you're trying to be discreet I'm not sure if you have people around and you need to be quiet. If there's a way you can get a little closer to your mic or something, so I can hear a little better and keep track of the conversation. That'll help me listen better. But what I heard you say is that you're struggling, feeling like your family doesn't want to help you, and they know you're homeless, and separately from that it just crushes you that they don't seem to care about your relationship, and I don't know. You have a very sensitive issue, so I don't want to make you feel I'm prying. I don't want to ask a bad question or ask a too sensitive of a question. So if I ask anything, just know I'm trying to understand, and you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
But it makes me, from what I'm hearing, makes me wonder, like, did something happen between you and your brother and sister that could have caused them to feel unsafe around you? I mean, I'm sure that they love you. I mean, they can't help but love you. They're your flesh and blood, that's in their genes. Of course, people don't always know how to show love. Parents will abuse their kids sometimes when they're not mentally well. Brothers and sisters, relationships can fall apart, but none of these things mean that people don't love each other. I'm sure they don't wish that you weren't around. I'm sure they don't wish you were not here on this earth. I'm sure that they love you. Makes me wonder, again, to get back to the original question, like, did something happen? Is it possible that they could feel unsafe by something? And is that something that can be remedied? Is there something, a conversation that could be had that could, and it might not be one conversation, but I'm just, we'll start with the first question.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess to answer that truthfully is yes, something has. It wasn't necessarily one thing. I don't think it was, many different interactions of I know for a fact my sister would tell me that she didn't like how I was talking to her. And so that may have something to do with it. I know I mentioned I have panic attacks. Now, sometimes I'm going to try to be a little bit louder. My AC just turned on, so I'm going to turn that off. But my when I have panic attacks, if I don't manage it well, I will react by hitting myself. And I know I've done that in front of her before, and it's not really nice to be around. I know that, and I guess growing up, there have been times when I probably lashed out like that to her, and I've told her before, fairly recently, that that I told her it's like I don't want her to feel bad if she can't directly help me, but that even if in a way that she's indirectly helping me, because she was in a way showing me how to set a boundary and stick with it, because it's been years now and she still doesn't want to talk to me about emotional things. I sometimes think it's going to change, and that, well, my hope is that it would change and that I would be able to have a close relationship with her again, and just because the siblings is all we have. Like,
Right.
our parents aren't around anymore, and so I know when I first called, this was a while ago. I mentioned my older brother, and I was living with him, and we were going to live together after we left the place that we were at. And he changed his mind last minute and moved to a completely different state that he had never even been to. He just left and left me there. I know I have abandonment issues. I already had them before. And it's like, it just keeps happening, I guess, to me, that people leave me. And, it very well could be my actions. I think it is my actions. I know when a lot has happened since I last talked. And I know you recommended 2 books to me, and I still haven't gotten those books. But I saw Atomic Habits in a Target, and I just gasped and just had to stare at the book fondly, like flip through the pages, and just, because I could have asked my friend to get it for me, but I didn't, and I don't have like sparingly income like that, so
Right.
I'm trying to like stick with what I have. But the other book that you mentioned was Nonviolent Communication. And
Great book.
And it was kind of the same thing that happened in this call happened in the other call, where you told me that I hadn't mentioned anything about where I may be being violent in my communication, but that maybe that is what's happening, and maybe I'm being perceived as violent, and I'm like triggering my brother, is what you said. And I was like, yeah, that may be it. And I remember what you said to me meant so much to me that I wrote I wrote down word for word what you said. I'm gonna get like emotional kind of, but I wrote it down in my journal. I like watched the video in like a slower speed so I can catch all the words
Mm.
that you were saying, and I wrote it down. And I wish I wish I had that journal with me right now, but I don't. But it just it meant a lot to me, and after that after our phone call, I ended up having a panic attack in front of my brother. That was so bad. I was not acting right. I I don't know how else. I mean, I could get into detail, but I'm not sure if that would serve a purpose right now. But I wasn't acting right, and um, my brother wasn't really respecting my boundaries that I was trying to have in that moment, and I ended up uh, voluntarily admitting myself to a mental hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Um, not good.
Mm.
Not
There's a lot of bad.
I
There's a lot of bad hospitals, unfortunately. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, and I don't even want to say that the one that I was at was necessarily bad. I know it doesn't matter because this is anonymous anyway, so no one's gonna know.
Right. Yeah. Please don't mention
But
the name of the hospital.
yeah, I will not. Yeah, I do not want to get toasted. But yeah, while I was there, I my first night there was just not good. I was getting used to being in a new place. I don't really adjust to change very well, and the people there were I made friends with a lot of people, so that is good. It was a good experience in that. But they were very open with what their problems were, and
Mm.
I found myself like I was getting triggered, but then I didn't know of a safe way of like going to my room. I was actually me and this other girl were the only two people that had like a roommate. Everyone else had their own room. So even if I went to my room, I wouldn't be alone. And I found myself, felt like I was being forced to listen to these people's um, backstory that I didn't ask to hear. And it wasn't like, hey, is it okay if I talk about this? They just started talking about it. And it almost felt like I was in a TV show, I'll be honest, because it was like I'm sitting there just trying to be quiet and do what I'm supposed to do, and everyone is like being loud and jumping around and doing. It's like they all had their own little TV personalities,
Mm.
and I made friends with everyone there, and so it was. I was able to like keep the peace within myself, and so I guess I learned that I was like stronger than I thought I was. Um, but I know that the first night that I was there, I just don't feel like I was treated fairly. I um I remember I wasn't feeling well. I was having symptoms of, well, I guess this is a symptom, but I'm still learning how to talk about it. But I was having suicide ideation thought symptoms. I'm not sure how I should word that just yet, but I made that clear to the people. Like I went up to them and I first was talking about some pain that I was having, some physical pain that I was having, and the nurse I was talking to didn't seem to really care that much, and she was just like, "Oh well, can you do this with your shoulder? Can you do this?" And I'm like, I was reluctant to move because I have kind of a hypermobility issue that I still don't understand completely, but my joints will pop out of place, and it's sometimes okay, but sometimes very uncomfortable. And in that moment, I just didn't want to do any extra movement because honestly, I was concerned that I was physically hurt because I was hurting myself, like I was hitting myself, and I didn't get checked out at the hospital. And so I told her about that. She didn't really want to listen, and she kind of walked away from me. And at that point, I just started. I just knew I was having a panic attack, and I couldn't really move. I was kind of stuck where I was at, and every noise that I was hearing was bothersome, and it was really scary because it's like I was in a brand new environment, and I just heard, I could hear people walking, like the sound of people's shoes moving on the floor was scary to me. And I honestly didn't know what was going to happen. I'd never been in a place like that before. I don't know if they were going to like try to restrain me or something.
Right.
But I ended up telling her that I was having symptoms of like that I wanted to hurt myself. I told her that word for word. I said, I feel like I want to hurt myself. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but she walked away from me, and then I just remember I backed against the wall. I was trying to like keep myself together. I hold my ears when I do that. So I was holding my ears and looking around at everyone, and all the patients are just looking at me, and they're being nice. Like I can tell, like they're like, it's okay, like it's gonna be okay. And that was honestly the most helpful thing, because the next thing I ended up sitting down where I couldn't see anyone because it was just overwhelming, and I didn't just wanted to calm down without having to look at anything. And I was looking at a wall, and I could hear somebody come up from behind me, and she said something to me, and I remembered her name, so I said, "Is this so and so?" And she didn't answer whether it was her or not. And she instead she was like telling me what to do. She was like, you need to go over here, you need to go over here. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I want to hurt myself. Like I don't want to. I don't know what's going on. I need to know what's going on. And I told her again that I feel like I want to hurt myself. And she said, well, then sit down at this table and we will observe you. And I mean, hearing that in the moment, it felt like she was telling me to sit down and hit myself in front of her so she could watch.
I see.
And I knew, like, I hope that wasn't what she meant.
No, that's certainly not what she meant. This was a mental health professional.
Yeah, she was like, her title was a technician there. So I mean, throughout my stay there, I asked to speak with a licensed counselor like 3 different times, and I never got the chance to do that.
Right.
I met with the doctor every day, and I was, I think I was 5 days total that I spent there, and then they let me leave. And then when I did leave, because after that first day, that was like the worst of it. Each day after that got a little bit better, and so I guess in a way it was okay. I made some connections there, but since then I haven't really kept up with them, and I'm honestly conflicted. I'm like, is this is this who I should try to connect with? Like, I don't want to be rude to the people here and think that, oh, I don't want to be friends with someone who was in a mental hospital, because I was in a mental hospital, so
Right.
I can't really say that.
Well, it doesn't sound like you felt very safe there. It doesn't sound like it sounds like it was a confusing experience for you. So there might be complicated. If you're okay with it, I want to pause and revisit some things from the chat that we've gotten away from earlier before we get too much further from it. I do appreciate you sharing about your experience in the hospital. I'm sorry it was kind of tumultuous. A moment ago, Chelsea Crawford suggested, when we were talking about Atomic Habits and you were saying you haven't had the money to go pick it up yet, Chelsea Crawford suggested picking it up from your local library. I don't know if you have a library card, but that could be a great way to read it for free. I know some libraries will even do audiobooks. don't tell us which city you're in, but I know in some cities there's some audiobook library rentals. You might be able to even get it on an audiobook if you prefer to read it that way, or if the rental time won't be enough for you to physically read it. I thought that was a great suggestion. And then also Tao Master from the chat is reminding me, and it's to you, but I had forgotten this, that there's actually an Atomic Habits podcast from James Clear, the author, where he doesn't read the book, but it's a podcast where he talks about the themes of the book, and it's the Atomic Habits podcast. So that's a free resource that you might just be able to listen to in your free time, or when you're folding laundry or whatever any chores you have to do, like you can just listen to it while you're doing whatever you got to do during the day. Those are the two great suggestions I wanted to highlight. And then also Sir Sawicki from the chat, who I believe mentioned earlier they're a therapist or a counselor, is suggesting that you find a mental health support group. A lot of those, if not all of them, are free, and I think that's probably the best suggestion here. I think a mental health support group for you at this time in your journey would be so valuable. It doesn't sound like therapy is going to be in the cards for some time until you get back on your feet. But a support group is a much safer place to make new connections and share about your story than in a mental health hospital, where a mental health hospital, nobody really wants to be there. The whole point is to leave. the whole point is to get out as quickly as possible, recuperate and get out. And a mental, a support group is entirely different. Like, people want to go to support groups. People are looking for that community, and people make lifelong friends in those kinds of settings. And you're talking to people that will understand. You're talking about, in a support group, people won't be shocked by hearing you share about your panic disorder in the way that your family might be. And that brings me to something that I wanted to mention earlier, but I was just listening. We've kind of gotten away from it, but you mentioned that you were is when we were talking about your brother and your sister, and you were trying to figure out why they're, what's at the core of this treatment that they're giving you. And you had said, I'm trying to remember exactly how you put it, but you said, you suggested that you were, the way that you have the disorder you have, I wish I could remember exactly how you said it. We've gotten away from it now. But you suggested that, do you remember what I'm talking about? Can you refer, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
I remember what the issue, but it's so sensitive. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Was it when I said like how I was talking?
No,
Okay.
you suggested that, I'll just, instead of putting words in your mouth, I'll just tell you what I had to say, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I can't remember exactly how you put it. But I wanted to say to you that, these disorders, especially something like panic disorder, science is still learning how these disorders come about and what the cause is. You seem to have some clear sense of what the cause of it was, but I wanted to say to you that it's possible. It's at least very probable, from what we know about panic disorder, that you could have developed it because of your childhood environment that you had no control over. In other words, you might have had no choice but to develop this because of the environment you were raised in. I don't know what environment you were raised in, or how your parents treated you, or if you felt like you had any agency in that environment, or if you felt out of control. But I'm racking my brain to try to remember exactly the words you used, but you had kind of suggested the opposite of that it was the other way around. And I wanted to just encourage you that, like, I don't know if you've considered that and I don't know if that's applicable or if that's accurate, that I wonder if you could share about your childhood a little bit, and what how your parents treated you, what your relationship with your parents was like, and things like that, because I sense that I'm going here because I sense that you feel really trapped and stuck and confused, and I think maybe getting into some more of your backstory might shed some light on some interesting things.
Yeah. I guess what I could say about it, just to be concise and not take up too much time, is, well, my parents were married, I guess, but they split up. They were just separated when I was about 6 years old, and I just lived with my mom, with me and we were four of us. There's four of us kids growing up, and we mostly lived with our mom up until I was in middle school, and then we started visiting our dad every other weekend. And um, after middle school, there was this kind of big moment that happened where I guess I should say maybe like major event or something. But I came home one day, and the house was like leaking. The water heater had like busted, and there was just water pouring all down. And it ended up being so bad that there was like mold growing in the house, and I think my mom was going through some mental health problems. Well, she definitely was. But at the time, it wasn't really discussed with me. I was only in middle school, or it was at the end of middle school, so I was in eighth grade. But at that time, um, my dad had met somebody else, and he was wanting to live with her and stuff like that. So they were going to move in together. And because of everything that was going on with my mom, and that the place that we were living in was not really safe to live, we ended up all moving with our dad. And we all lived with our dad, and he ended up officially getting divorced from my mom, because they had not been divorced. They were only separated for years, but they got divorced. So, and my dad remarried, and I had a stepsister too, and that was my whole almost, so I started high school in a brand new place and lived with my dad, and things were okay. They were actually like kind of like a normal family type of thing. My stepmom was like, she was kind of strict sometimes, but she showed kindness as well. And I remember like she wanted me to call her mom at one point, and I was like, I don't want to call you mom, because when I think of that, I think of my actual mom. And at the time, I was under the impression that my mom didn't want to talk to us anymore, because that was something that happened. We didn't really have any contact with my mom while I was living with my dad. And so I was like, I don't want to call you that, because it reminds me of her, and I don't see you as that. Like, to me, your name is now what mom means. Like,
Right.
I was trying to have like a nice little moment. And um, well, my junior year of high school uh, things changed, because my dad suddenly passed away. He had a heart attack, and my younger brother was the only one there to witness it. They had gone out fishing, and my dad was trying to start the boat and had a heart attack. And I remember it was the day of my junior prom is when he passed away. So I did not go to prom, which of course I don't want to go anymore. I just
Right.
want to be with my family.
Right.
But it was, everything changed after that. My stepmom, looking back, she was depressed. Like, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I've thought about how it would feel to be her, that she's just a woman who meets somebody that she falls in love with. She only has one kid of her own, decides to live with him, and then all of a sudden, all of us, all four kids, come to live with her. And then not too long later, he passes away, and she's left with all these kids. And so she, it was just kind of, to me, I suppose this is kind of, I try to see like the humor in it, but I feel like she became like an evil stepmom. Like that's how we kind of saw her at the time, because she had already sent my older brother away, like had kicked him out. I think he was kicked out before um, my dad passed away, her dad passed away. And then after he passed, she kicked out my younger brother, but she couldn't kick him out because obviously he's a minor and stuff like that. But she could not, um, she could not handle the way he was reacting toward just, I mean, he needed therapy, to be honest, and he did go to therapy where he ended up moving to, but my younger brother got moved around between three different families for the span of like 3 years. Each year he was in a different place. And I was still living with my stepmom. But I found out later that she stole money from me. And so it was like she was literally turning into like an evil stepmom. She had access to my bank account because she never told the bank that my dad passed away.
Right.
And so she was taking money from me, and I didn't even know it. When I kind of found out, I ended up living with a family friend. I was like, going to live with a family friend, and then I need to shorten this. I'm already being long-winded, but I ended up getting joint custody of my younger siblings, with this family friend, and we all were living together. Besides my older brother, we were all living back together with this family friend, which was my best friend from high school. It was her mom. But yeah, after that, it was like things were just kind of hectic still, because my younger brother was still having anger problems. And then I just remember one day I tried to stand up to him because I didn't like how she was talking to him. And I said, "You're not going to talk to my brother like that." And then she started coming at me. She's like, "You don't even pay rent here." And I'm like, "We haven't discussed me paying rent here. If you want me to pay rent, like, you got to let me know." Because, I was over 18 at the time. I thought, have my own job and stuff like that. But it ended up being that I just left. I was like, I'm going to leave. I reconnected with my older brother. Because I guess like there's an important part of me and my older brother that may be, I don't know if I'm using this word right, but the word like vindicative is coming up to mind. I hope I'm using it right. But my older brother, when we did live with our mom and we were younger, our mom would go to work and he would have to watch us, and he was only like 12 years old having to watch three kids. And
My goodness.
he ended up like, he would hit me a lot. Like he would just get mad and like beat me up, and I would just be like in a little ball hiding, and he's just hitting me. So like, I know I have problems because of that. I've since kind of like forgiven him for that, but yeah. So that I didn't mention that before, so I just wanted to go back into that. But yeah.
That's a lot.
I feel like I'm saying a lot.
That's
Yeah.
that's dense. I mean, what I'm hearing is it sounds like you felt really out of control. Makes me wonder when the panic attacks started. How old were you when they started? After this? After all this? In the middle of all this?
It was after all that. It wasn't during my, I mean, I guess in a way I may have been having panic attacks as, younger, but I was never diagnosed with it until way late, like, when was my, it was, I think it was 2019 when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I since then I had a kid in 2018, and I still have him. He doesn't live with me, but he's still here. I can't tell you his name, but maybe one day I'll get to talk to you out of anonymous life. But I named him
Ooh, don't tell us the name. Don't tell us the name.
after. I know I'm not going to tell you his name, but
Okay.
it's just your videos. One of your videos inspired his name.
Wow.
So yeah, I actually had my baby shower theme was kittens and milk. um, so
Don't tell us you named him Malk.
no, we didn't name that.
I feel so sorry for this kid.
Maybe one day I'll get to talk to you when I don't have to be anonymous, and I'll get to tell you. I don't want to give too many hints
Yeah,
because I don't want to
please
get
don't.
posted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool that I get to tell you that over the phone. So because
That is
I've been
cool.
a big fan of your work this whole time. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
wild.
Anyway.
Well, you've shared a lot, and your story is very dense, and so I wanna revisit that comment from Sir Sawicki from the chat, suggesting that you find a support group. I think that again, it sounds like therapy is probably out of the question for the time being, but like you can find a support group anywhere. I would like please try to make that time.
I am in therapy too. Sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
great.
But
Excellent.
I'm fortunate enough, to have, because of my son, I'm able to qualify for Medicaid.
Oh, great.
And so it's covered. Like, I have a therapist, and he's great. He's on vacation this week, so maybe that's why I need to call. But yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and it helps immensely.
Right.
So I know I'll be all right, and it does mean a lot to get these suggestions, and I wrote it down. Mental health support group. That's really something I need to do, and I need to be active in the Discord too.
Yeah, the Discord would be great. The Discord would be great.
I tried a little bit, but I wasn't able to. I get a little nervous sometimes when I'm with
That's
things
fine.
like that, but I'll try again. So I do appreciate those suggestions.
Well, to bring it full circle, you started because you had some concerns with your relationship with your brother and sister, and I would say maybe discuss. I mean, I'm sure you're discussing that in therapy, but I wonder, maybe do some self-reflection. I would say like maybe really get into that in therapy. Maybe really get into it in a support group, into the dynamics between you and your brother and sister, and what could mend that situation. If there are some regrettable memories, or some things that you can remedy, do some reflection on what that would look like to heal that. And it's probably going to take time. It's not going to be quick, probably. It's probably not going to be one conversation. It's probably going to be, best case scenario, it's probably a conversation and then just some proven dedication to mending that relationship. Like demonstratively prove that you want that to be better. Demonstrate that. And is who no one can tell you how long that's going to take, because we don't know your brother and sister. We don't know the intimate details of the relationship, and that's a lot of that's your own journey anyway that you're on. But I believe that from what it sounds like, your siblings are probably just a little. I'm sure they're worried about you. It sounds like they're worried, and they're probably a little. I used that word unsafe. I bet it sounds like they feel unsafe, and unsure what it is that you need, and so they're just distancing themselves a little bit. Is what it sounds like. Sounds like totally mendable to me, but it's probably going to take some effort and some time. I think these recommendations of like reading Atomic Habits, getting into a support group, library could be a great resource for a number of books, but You
I
know,
don't know how I didn't think about that before, so thank you so much
I don't know
to
how I didn't either.
who
I
this
mean, like,
one
honestly,
suggested the library.
I know. It's 2022. What's a
I hope
library?
there's one nearby. It's such a simple solution. I should have thought of that, but that's why these I'm
Chelsea
so
Crawford for the
grateful for
win.
things like this and this community. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking up libraries tomorrow. It's on the books already.
Great. Great.
Closest one.
Well, I'm hoping that you find some some peace with yourself, and I hope that this was a good conversation. I hope that you can, open yourself to the possibility, at least, that I mean, everything you shared sounds like you developed that. It sounds like that panic disorder was developed out of your experience, and you would need some proper therapy, a deep dive in therapy to really determine that. But you said it yourself that it didn't start until after all that crazy experience, all those crazy experiences were over. It didn't start till after those. So, I mean, like you said it. I would, I mean, early on in the call, you had suggested it sounded like you suggested it was the other way around, the cause of the panic anxiety, the panic disorder. But, I think there's probably a nugget in there, a nugget of truth that will be helpful for you in unpacking what's beneath all that. And that could be the first step in healing the stuff with your brother and sister, because it sounds like they might need to see some determination to change and to I don't like the word change. It sounds like I'm telling you to change. To heal. We all have healing. Everybody has to heal from stuff. Everybody has that stuff. Yeah. So
I call it shadow work.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I love
Well,
shadow. Yeah,
it's
that term.
like I gotta work with the, I guess, grudges and shadows I have in me, and do some self work, and
Yeah.
I know I can do it, and I am determined. I guess I feel like I have been I feel like I have demonstrated that, but even if I don't know if they're exactly ready to like let me in, and I'm still obviously struggling. So I'm hoping that once I get back on my feet, I can keep being determined, and I really like how you said to like actually demonstrate that I'm wanting to stay better and be better and have good relationships with them. And yeah, so this call has been like so good for me, and I'm glad I got to talk to you and especially tell you about my baby shower theme, because I wanted to say that in the first call.
What a story. Thanks for sharing. It was great speaking with you. I'm wishing the best for you. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Have a great night. Best wishes to you.
Yeah, best wishes to you too. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, guys. Lines are opening. I forgot to get that caller's age. We got right into it. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi. What you want to talk about?
Oh, I made it? Oh.
You made it. Welcome.
Lately, I've really been struggling. Sorry, my heart is pounding really fast. Calm down.
No problem. Take a second if you want. Take a second to collect your thoughts if you want.
Yeah. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Perfect. Feeling like thinking I'm a bad person, but also feeling upset at my family for almost making me feel like I don't have a voice. I don't know. It's a lot. to get into. I feel like growing up I was made to put my needs last, and I was kind of a parent for my mother. And so in my adult life now, in my family, I'm not allowed to be emotional. I'm not allowed to be a little selfish. And I was called selfish growing up. And so my internal voice is just feeling like nobody notices me, nobody cares. I feel desperate to be heard sometimes. I'm definitely an oversharer, which I've worked on a lot, but...
Are you still living at home? How old are you?
So I'm an adult. I'm married. I have a child and another one on the way. My
Congratulations.
sister is also an adult and married. My relationship with her kind of ties in with my mom. It's not healthy. It's pretty negative. My sister is kind of allowed to act out, and my mom, it's your sister, you have to keep the peace. I've always had to keep the peace. Like, I'm not allowed to have hurt feelings or say anything, or it's like, no, your sister's illogical and crazy, so you can't say anything.
Okay, so some kind of double standard.
Yeah, there's a huge double standard. And I'm the youngest, but I mean, I guess I'd be the golden child. I'm pretty dang sure I'd be the golden child. I was always, literally my mom, her nickname for me when I was growing up was my angel.
Oh.
And it's sweet, but it's also like a lot of pressure on a kid, because when I would act up, she would tell me that I wasn't her angel anymore.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And there's a lot of crap. I mean, I have PTSD from being sexually abused.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry to hear about
Sorry.
I was just sorry. I was just saying, my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know unfortunately, it's extremely common, which makes me sick. And as a mother now, I'm a very anxious, paranoid, untrustworthy person. And my mom, on my 18th birthday, when I finally told her what had happened to me from the hands of my cousin, who was 5 years older than me, and in the beginning of the day she was understanding, she said that her brother had sexually abused her, as well as an exchange student in her household when she was only 5.
Wow.
And by the end of the day, she told me it was in the past and to get over it.
Okay, so...
And...
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I feel like I'm just, unloading.
No, I do have some questions. I'm wondering if you mind giving us your age. I try to ask that so it's helpful to other listeners.
Okay. I wasn't sure how much was okay. I'm
age is
22,
okay.
Almost 23.
Okay. Yeah, it's helpful for, I think, the other listeners to know the age. But yeah, don't share any. Age is as personal as we get here. No names, no locations. I don't want to toast anyone.
Okay.
So if we can back up a little bit, because I don't want to get too far from something you said. You said that you mentioned you parented your parents, and I'm curious, what did that look like? To what extent? What did that mean?
So my mom was married to my stepfather, who was an alcoholic. And at the age of 3, I can remember her crying in her bedroom while he was on an alcoholic rage, drunk in the other room, and her crying about being a terrible mother, and me having to tell her, you're not a terrible mother. And being a mom now, thinking about that, it feels really twisted to me, because the only thing I want from my child is for him to know that he's not responsible for my emotions. Maybe because I was responsible for my mother's emotions so much.
Right.
There's a name for the relationship I have with my mom. It's one where there's just not enough boundaries, and I'm aware of it, and I've tried to make some boundaries and not take her emotions on me as much, but my parents were divorced my whole life, and just recently they've gotten remarried. And
Wow.
My dad also has struggled with addiction, and my mom is codependent, so she's never alone for very long. She moves a lot. She's somebody that she doesn't allow herself to be happy. There's always something wrong. And so she always has someone to cry on the shoulder about, and it's always me. Her other kids have just, especially my sister. My sister, maybe that's why my mom tiptoes around her so much, but my sister's very cold with her and shuts her down really fast. And I'm not allowed to do that. If I do that to my mom, she blows up my phone for days. Like, it's really bad. She's quite volatile.
Sounds like there's some codependency at play with not just your mom and dad, but maybe it sounds like when you were a kid, there was some codependent stuff happening between you and your mom. And I'm not calling you codependent. I mean that literally when you were in their house, you were their dependent, and your mom was depending on you.
Tell me.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I want to be very clear. I'm saying when you were living in their house, I'm saying this because you were saying your mom called you her little angel, and then would tell you very clearly when you weren't being her little angel. That's manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
That's an awful thing to say to your kid. It's disgusting. I mean, it's really. I don't want to get too hard on your mom. Like I'm not calling your mom disgusting, but it's really sad to see that. Like, it's really like that. Your mom sounds like she hasn't healed from a lot of stuff. You mentioned she's codependent with your dad, and I'm acknowledging that it sounds. I'm going somewhere with this. Let me get through this murky territory here, and I'm gonna maybe there's something useful. I was making a point that it sounds like there was your mom was forcing a codependent dynamic in your relationship. Not that I'm not calling you codependent. We haven't even talked about your relational style, so there's no way I could know that.
No, that's actually really eye-opening.
My point was that
I've never thought of her as being codependent on me. My
point is that, like, you were literally their dependent when you're living with them. You're on their tax write-offs, like you're one of their tax write-offs, that you're a dependent. And so, like, you couldn't help but be dependent on them. That's not what I'm not calling you a codependent personality type or something. But my point is that, like, we're all dependents of our parents when we're in their house. But your mom sounds like she was putting maybe some, like, maybe it was like emotional baggage from her marriage, maybe dissatisfaction from her marriage. She was hoping you could fulfill that or something. Like, why else would you? You mentioned they had this divorce, and that your dad, like, they weren't happy. And, like, you were the last child, so, like, maybe you were, like, the final fantasy. Maybe there was this weight on you. And I'm saying all this because you said your other siblings didn't get this treatment. It was only you. And you called in, like, why are my parents treating me this way? And I'm thinking, like, well, you're the last child. Your parents weren't happy. They were divorced. You said your mom's codependent. And I'm thinking, like, maybe your mom was using you while you were in their house as some kind of, feel good person, as at least possible.
Yeah. I think she actually, you just recalled a memory for me. I think that she actually did say to me once upon a time that I kind of was her last hope.
What? No way.
My brothers, I have 3 older brothers, they all dropped out of high school around the time my parents got a divorce. It was extremely difficult for them. And I think only one brother's gone back, but that's not important. And then my sister she graduated. She was the first one to graduate in our family, like, on time, per se. There's really no right way to do everything, but she was she was definitely a little bit of a problem, you know. She was running around with bullies and staying out late and spending money, and I just stayed home. I didn't want to ask my mom for anything. I knew that she had debt, and I knew that she struggled, and I felt guilty about asking her for things like my sister did. My sister got everything she wanted. And I remember when I was 16, my mom, most of my childhood was her going back and forth to my stepdad, who was an alcoholic. Same guy. And I told her when I was 16 that if she went back, then that would make her a bad mother, because I told her, you know, from the clarity of a 16-year-old, I already knew this is his addiction. I knew the cycle.
Right.
I knew the cycle of, oh, I'm so sorry, and the gifts, and you know, he's like a classic narcissist, which is perfect for her because she's codependent. And she told me that I was ruining her chance at happiness. And
Wow.
I think I'd written her a letter, and I remember walking out to the dumpster of our apartment and ripping it up and shoving it down in the dumpster and just crying and remembering that she'd said that to me. And we went back, and it didn't end well.
I'm really sorry to hear about all that. It sounds like you grew up under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And you're still carrying a lot of that. It sounds like mainly you're not some. It sounds like you're out from under a lot of the pressure since you've gotten on your own feet. You're starting your own family now. You're no longer their dependent. But that it's mainly just confusing now, is what I'm hearing, because your mom's treating your other siblings differently.
Yeah, and I feel like now, because of all of the squashing down of my voice that my mom did, and I know that she loves me, I do, and I know that she herself is a very traumatized person, and, you know, now that I am a parent, I can, you know, I have more appreciation for her, but also sometimes looking back, I'm like, oh, I could not imagine doing that to my child. I feel like I don't have a voice anymore, and I don't know if that's just from the way my own family, you know, I'm not allowed to talk about the fact that I was sexually abused, and for me, it's, my psychiatrist encouraged me to almost numb myself to it. I guess that's part of the treatment for PTSD for some people. And I want to talk about it because I feel like I have grown a lot, but I'm not allowed to because it's too hard for my mom. Like, I absolutely can't talk about it. Like, once upon a time, I was having active suicidal ideation, and I was self-harming, and, you know, coming to this call, I mean, I don't know if you did this years ago, but I wish I could have found it years ago, because I was struggling really, really bad. And now I've been able to go through a lot of therapy and help myself a lot, but I want to reach out to my family, you know, but they won't, they're not in their own mental state to handle it. And, you know, my in-laws.
To handle what?
Bless their hearts. Just to handle my own, like, not handle my emotions, but handle my story. Like I just want to be open with my family about life. And I understand, you know, my sister, that cousin who had pretty severely abused me, had tried to abuse my sister, and she was able to say no. And he told me that, you know, I don't know what adult let him sleep in my room. I really don't know who said that was okay. You know, you know how little kids are like, oh my gosh, my teenage cousin is so cool, and he's letting me play his Game Boy, and he's showing me fun music, and we're going on walks. And like that summer, they just had thought, okay, well, you guys can have a sleepover, but it went on for days and days and days. And I mean, that wasn't the only time abuse happened. And I'm sorry if that's too triggering. I don't want to trigger anybody because.
No, that's what we're doing here. I mean, you're safe to talk about this stuff here. This stuff happens. This stuff, people need to know this kind of stuff happens. This stuff can't be taboo. You know, this stuff can't be, I mean, it should continue being taboo too, of course, but like, you know, people need to know this stuff happens. Like, it won't get better until people are aware that, like what you just said, like what kind of parent in their right mind lets an older cousin sleep in their bedroom if they're sexually compatible. Like, that's just cruising. That's horrible. That's not good parenting, you know. I'm agreeing with you.
My mom can't seem to accept that she let him sleep in my room.
Well, yeah.
I think that's why she struggles with it so much.
Yeah, she might.
And I asked him where babies came from, and in my deeply religious and strict family, especially my grandfather, my cousin used that against me to abuse me. He said that he would tell my grandpa that I asked where babies came from, and in my naive 8-year-old mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in so much trouble because there's a lot of shame around sex in my family. And that is something that will not happen with my children. You know, we use the right anatomical words for genitals. Like, it's, you know, it doesn't have to be shameful or taboo, but it was in my family, and that got me hurt. And
yeah, that's what I'm talking about when I say it shouldn't be taboo. Like, people need to be okay with people like you, survivors of abuse, coming forward and sharing their story. And your mom, you're right. Your mom doesn't sound like she's open to it. Maybe it is because she had some hand in that. It might also be because it might be a split between that and the fact that it sounds like she hasn't really healed from her own sexual abuse story. It sounds like she's just swept that under the rug. A lot of boomers don't like therapy. A lot of boomers see therapy as a sign of weakness, and they don't understand that, you know, they see it as like emotional manipulation. They think counselors just manipulate people into spending money and talking about their feelings. They don't understand that psychology is a thing that people can study and become equipped to help others grow through things. And a lot of boomers don't acknowledge that. It sounds like your mom hasn't done that work. If she's denying her own, if she's just saying her own sexual abuse story was just like, yeah, you just got to get over that. Like, that makes me really wonder what your mom, like, she's clearly not happy. It makes me sad for your mom. It makes me really sad for her, because that's not fair for her either. But she might not be able to hear your story. It doesn't mean that you don't have a voice. Your relationship with your parents sounds like it's strained. Maybe it, you know, I'm just spitballing here. I mean, it's certainly in the cards that maybe you need to have more of a medium chill relationship with your parents if things don't get better. If they can't hear your story, maybe the relationship needs to move more towards a medium chill kind of thing. I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm saying seems like it's at least in the cards if things don't improve. And if she's not going to get closure and seek growth on her own, then, you know, seems only reasonable that she couldn't hear or understand you growing out of that.
Yeah. I think that would be really good for me to have that acceptance that, you know, she's not going to change. And I mean, most people, I think a lot of people that we do meet in this life and our family members are not going to change, and we have to try and make peace in ourselves. And, you know, my dad he knows, but I always regretted telling him because he immediately wanted to contact the parents of my cousin who abused me. And I was like, do not.
Right.
Please do not, because that would make everything 10 times worse, because victims are most of the time not believed, and it's blamed on them, and it's embarrassing. It shouldn't be embarrassing, but it does feel that way. And he's a really reserved guy, and love him a lot. He's got his own addiction issues, and he's a depressed person. So he's been someone that I try to connect with, but I can't, which is maybe why I rely on my mom so heavily for that connection, because I knew that he loved me, but he was absent. You know, I only saw him every other weekend, and the man doesn't speak. The man doesn't smile. He doesn't get out of his chair to give you a hug goodbye. If you tell him I love you, he goes, love you. You know, you might actually have to say I love you 2 or 3 times to get him to mumble out love you, because he's like chronically shy even of his own children. So I really just want to stop feeling like I have to prove myself to people. I do know that obviously my childhood has roots and everything, and I just feel like sometimes I feel like a prisoner, because I feel like I am a person who deserves to be seen, right? Or, you know, but then I struggle with, well, I'm a bad person because I've had all these mental issues, and I've had anger issues, and even though I've tried so hard to work through them, and I've even had my psychiatrist tell me that she considered me a recovered patient, which I don't know if anyone can be true. You could truly say you're recovered with mental stuff, because it's lifelong. But I totally just lost my train of thought.
Well, you're going through a lot. What I hear in your voice is the voice of somebody who has been told to just sweep it under the rug their whole life, and I can hear that actually in your cadence. I can hear that in your tone of voice. I can hear it in. I hope you don't mind that I'm making this observation. It's no criticism, but I'm saying this to inspire. I'm saying this to inspire. I'm saying this to inspire you. That you have a voice. You have a voice, and you might not feel very confident in that. You might not feel very self-confident if you have parents that are just dismissive of your feelings and your story and the things that are important to you, especially if you're the youngest and you're enmeshed with your mom. But
enmeshed, that's what it's called.
But you've got a voice. You've got it. And not only do you have a voice, I'm going to say something a little more on the nose, that you, because you're the youngest, that gives you like a massive leg up in your family. A lot of people see that as a disadvantage, but it gives you a massive leg up in your family, because you're not only, each generation is a little bit more, we're all just our parents, right? Like, we're all just our parents. So, like, each generation is a micro evolution of the previous generation. That is to say, in other words, each generation is a slightly more advanced copy of the previous generation and their genes, but slightly more adapted to their environments. I'm not calling you a different species than your parents, of course. Like, we're talking about like very micro evolutions, but that's how evolution works. It happens through micro generational, exchanges of genes and adaptations. And the fact that you're the youngest is like that on steroids, because you have also the context of your entire older brother and sister's life stories to look at and learn from. Like, when I was I don't have to tell you this, but just for example, like when I was growing up, I had an older sister. My sister got into a bunch of trouble when she was in her teens. Nothing like serious, but with my parents, she'd get in all this trouble. And I learned real quick that it was like, oh yeah, I either can't do these things, or if I do them, I have to be much smarter about it.
Smarter.
Because I'll get busted. My parents won't like it, or whatever the reason is. So the point is, like, you being the youngest, like, you should be rip-roaring with confidence. Like, you should, I'm not saying you should be anything, but I'm trying to motivate you that, like, that is in you. You have the advantage here. The ball's in your court. You know, you might not realize that yet. You might not have fully been able to heal from the stuff you've gone through, especially if your parents don't acknowledge it. I don't know if you have places you can talk about this. I don't know if you have a therapist or you have friends that know your story. Do you have that stuff? Do you have people that know your story that believe you? Have you had any practice owning who you are?
Not as much as I would like. I have probably about one friend, and I withdraw from people when I'm stressed, which is part of the problem. My husband, he believes me, and I'm really grateful that he doesn't see me as this dirty, used thing for being sexually abused as a child, because sometimes it's really hard not to feel that way. But he believes me, and he will listen to me. But I don't want to, I don't want to dump it on him all the time, and I don't even, he really gets angry when I talk about my mom and my sister, because it's just daily little things that they say that's just so wrong, and so, double standards that, he loves me and makes him upset. And I don't want to make him upset, and sometimes it's just easier to be like, well, let's just let it go, because they're who they are. I haven't been to therapy for a while. I went for 8 months consistently when I was really in the thick of, the self-harming and the active suicidal ideation. And she was good. She told me sometimes when I was being a little butt and needed to kick it into gear, but she also made sure to, obviously help me a lot. But I don't feel confident in going back to her, because I wanted to finish up things with her as a last appointment, and she just looked at me like, why are you here? And she didn't want to hear anything positive that was going on in my life. And I remember asking her, what if my PTSD flares up again like that? Because it was a sexual abuse that made me self-harm and made me not want to be here anymore, which is so painful to say, because I love my son so much.
Right.
And I don't want to leave him without a mom. So it's hard to think about that person. But yeah, I've been scared to go back to that therapist, but I can sense the anxiety in me again, and I'm able to cope with my triggers from the PTSD. If I hear his name or something that reminds me of the trauma, sometimes I don't even realize the things that will remind me of the trauma, and you kind of dissociate for a second, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm back, and I'm able to not let it rule me anymore. But she made me feel so she said, well, that's why we did the trauma narrative work, so it won't happen again. And it was just it felt very, I guess, sweeping under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And not addressing my concern, or, even just a nice, you can always come back if you need a tune-up, or...
So this is your old
I
therapist.
don't know. Yeah, and I really liked her for a long time, but...
Yeah. Well, therapy
those last moments, I was just I don't feel comfortable telling you that I'm struggling again.
Yeah. Might take you some time to find a therapist you can go deeper with. That can be really difficult. I know how difficult that can be. I would say if it's in the cards for you to get more therapy, building up confidence in yourself, that self-confidence is going to take time, a lot of time, probably a long time, and a lot of deep inner work. And if you can get a therapist, if you can afford the time and money to find a therapist you really do connect with, I know it can be disheartening to go deep with a therapist just to find out, actually, I don't jive with this person after all this time. But that can happen. It can happen. But I'd say, I'd hate to see you give up on counseling, especially with your story. You've got a lot to unpack, and you've got a lot ahead of you to deal with your family. And if your family's not going to address your past, if they're not going to address the things that happened to you, then you're going to need someone who can walk alongside of you. And it wouldn't, you're right, it wouldn't be fair to let that be your husband. Your relationship with your husband should just be the loving relationship that it is. And it's great that you, I mean, I really sense he does love you so much and cares about everything you've said about him. He sounds like a stand-up guy. He sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So what a great partner to have in your corner.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. But you know, a therapist, like my take is that you could really benefit from a counselor to walk with you, building that confidence, figuring out, you know, where it started. Again, my sense is that like you've just had your voice silenced for so long that, you know, it's going to take some time and some practice. Like that confidence is a muscle, and you haven't really had an outlet to practice it, you know, so you got to go to that mental gym and lift those weights until you realize you can, it's nothing for you to be in the presence of your parents and say like, no, like, this is true. Like it or not, take it or leave it. You know, like, I am me, you know? Might take you some time to get there.
It's my life.
Yeah. And to do that without casting any judgment on them. Like, your mom sounds like she takes that really personally. That sounds like she feels some sense of ownership of that. And you know, and you know, that's why I say, like, maybe the relationship with your mom, maybe there's healing that can happen there. And if not, maybe it becomes more of a medium chill thing. It doesn't sound like it needs to be no contact. It doesn't sound like there's any abuse happening. Like, it doesn't sound like she abuses you or anything. You know, so I think...
No, she's become, I mean, she has her moments where she's crazy, and I don't know how to handle her, but I think that just, you know, unfortunately, just not letting her into those kind of, not sacred emotions, but, you know, very deep emotions. I just think she's not a person that I can open up to.
Right.
Which is hard because, you know, we're freaking enmeshed, and I know it, and yeah.
Right. Garfield Arbuckle says to you, don't let others decide for you when you're fine. You're right to speak out as much as you need to. That's totally right.
Yeah. I don't want to put up a facade anymore.
Drop that thing. Might not be.
Definitely feel like a high-functioning type of struggling person.
Drop that facade and let the chips fall where they may. You know, I mean, drop it for yourself, and it might feel pressurized by the relationship with your parents. It might feel scary to drop that facade. You might be holding it up just so you can maintain that relationship with your mom. It might feel scary to live in a world where you don't live enmeshed with your mom. And, you know, this facade sounds like it's there to do just that, to make sure that things are peachy with your mom. So, you know, it's easier said than done to drop that thing, of course, because you've had a lot of practice holding on to it and using it. It's all you know to do. And there was a thing from the chat that was getting at this earlier. I didn't have a time to mention it. You were speaking, but
Sorry.
No. That's what you're literally here to do, is to speak. But the point was that you might unwittingly just slip. You might it might be so. I can't remember exactly how they said it, but you might involuntarily just slip back into that relationship style with your mom when you're around her, because it's just habit now. It's just like how it is. You know, just like I would say, like, create a mental picture of what it is that you manifest, you know, whether it's like a gladiator or like an eagle. I mean, and these are cheesy examples. I'm just giving you some examples. Like, what is the thing in you that is not being recognized? What is the essence that's not being recognized? What is that thing? And then just like picture yourself, not that you have to be defiant, not that you have to be nasty with your parents, you know, but like picture yourself being there with them, straight up honest, you know, non-accusatory, non-violent, just like being straight up, you know, and not caring how they respond, not like looking to insult them, but just being, let the chips fall where they may. Like, this is me. This is me. And work towards that.
Yeah. I've always, as a child, I was actually quite blunt and, I mean, bright little fiery child. I was very outspoken, and I feel so sad for that little girl who, you know, when they thought you do the exercises of speaking to your inner child in therapy, which was extremely helpful for me because there was a huge part of me that was like, it's your fault for asking where babies came from, and it's your fault, you know, with the sexual abuse and you know, you say visualize a mental picture, and I see a barbarian warrior
Awesome.
from Diablo games.
Awesome. That's incredible. I love that.
I want to be loud. I want to be, you know, I love makeup. And I love, like, nails. I love girly things, but it's not so much as being like this basic girl for me. I see it as this wonderful expression of personality, which is maybe why I'm so drawn to it, because it's a way to be loud without being actually loud.
Well, the original makeup was war paint, so it's fitting with the barbarian picture.
Right. Get my fake lashes and my glitter on. That's my war paint.
A very welcoming barbarian. It's the most welcoming war paint I've ever heard of.
And I've done, you know, I love writing, and I feel like there's two different personalities here. It's like, I love writing, and I've written a book that is purely for me. I don't talk about it, but I feel like that's a huge accomplishment that I was able to write a book, and I hope to be an author someday and write more, which I think is a big part of, I really want my voice out there. And at the same time being visually loud. I feel like those are the little ways I started to express myself, but as far as actually around my family, letting myself just be me, and, you know, I don't even really know who that is anymore. I know who I am around my spouse, and, you know, I definitely have a lot of sass, and, you know, he's the person that I feel like there's no facade, which is the way it should be. So I guess I could take my relationship with him as a starting point and maybe start to apply that person in all social situations, because I want to be 100 with everybody. I don't want to. I'm tired of, like, maybe my in-laws saying something to put me down, because they kind of think I'm stupid. Not gonna lie, and just, like, stewing about it and having my feelings hurt, because that's what my mom does. You know.
Right.
She's more like a gossipy type of person. You know, a little bit fake, and you know, you say we're like our parents. I get in a car and I'm, like, angry, and, you know, but I don't let that show to people. And instead of, like, you know, being rude to their face, I could start implementing a little bit of wit back, or, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking about fault with your mom earlier, or your parents in general, and I don't know if this idea is helpful for you or not, but I'm just thinking, like, fault is a kind of a tricky thing. Like, and I know you weren't saying your mom and your dad are to blame for everything, but, you know, when I was getting into, I want to be really careful, because earlier I was getting into the fact that your mom doesn't sound like she's done the work to heal from the stuff that happened to her. Mm-hmm. But that word fault is a really tricky word, because your mom is a victim too, it sounds like, you know? And yeah, like, of course, when everyone becomes a grown-up, we have a responsibility to not push our dirt onto other people. We have to grow. We have to learn from our mistakes, and that's on us as we become grown-ups. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, my point is that like you're inside your mom too. There's a scared little girl inside all of us. There's a scared little person that didn't get everything they needed, or you know, in other words, like not everybody gets everything they need in life, and that's the beauty of relationship is forgiveness. And your mom, if she hasn't fully healed, you know, she might not be able to fully give that to you. But and I'm not trying to say that you were wrong or anything by using that word fault, but I just wanted to add that to that thought that, you know, fault is a really tricky thing, especially because your mom is a victim that hasn't really come to terms with that, and you might only be able to have a relationship on that basis, but time will tell. And I love hearing this energy in your voice. You got a totally different energy in your voice now than you did when you first called. I'm hearing that sassy barbarian.
Well, you know, this whole time you're talking, my brain's just going, you know, I'm feeling more compassion for my mom. And, you know, really it's a relationship that when I first left home, I really felt like I hated her.
Right.
And really held her mistakes, like, against her, but didn't tell her. And then when everything hit the fan for me, and I did tell her, you know, that was the worst phone call when you know, but it was so necessary for me to just tell her, like, you did hurt me. I can't keep telling you that you were a great mom, you know, and feeling like it's not completely true. And, you know, our relationship has continued to change and evolve, and it's hard for me to remember that she is a traumatized person herself.
Right.
And, you know, when I interact with my son, when I do something that I, you know, as a parent, we all do things and we're like, I'm the worst parent ever. And, you know, no parent escapes that. None. And if they think they're, you know, I'm the great parent 100% of the time, you know,
no
that
one is.
might be something to look deeper at. Not saying that there aren't great parents, because there definitely are, but I get really hard on myself immediately and really terrified that I'm just going to mess him up and he's going to hate me and blame me, kind of the way that I hated my mom and blamed her for a while.
Well, there's a difference between you and your mom. You've got a self-awareness and a willingness to heal and a willingness to acknowledge what happened, for crying out loud. You know, you got all that. I'm not saying you're going to be a perfect parent. No one is. But I don't know. You have everything I'm hearing sounds like, I mean, this is the challenge of growing up the way that you did in that kind of a home. And I can relate to that kind of a home to an extent. I didn't grow up in the exact same thing, but I grew up in a similar thing. And, you know, the challenge that you have is you've acknowledged a lot of things that your family just stuffed down and never acknowledged. Things that they've dealt with personally in their own lives, in their own pasts, and things that, you know, it's this big bowl of spaghetti that your family is just like, you know, there's no spaghetti here. What are you talking about, spaghetti? You know, like, there's no spaghetti here. And like, you're like, there's some damn spaghetti here. You know, like, there's some spaghetti. You know, that's like what you're doing. And because you're acknowledging the spaghetti, you're not going to your kids aren't going to get that spaghetti. They'll get something else, probably, because nobody's perfectly balanced all the time. But like, my point is that, like, here's the hard truth, is that you grew up in this really difficult environment, and you grew up in an overly difficult environment. It was an unfairly difficult environment. And the beauty is the challenge simultaneously. The beauty is you don't have to give your kid that. You will not give your kid an overly difficult environment. Like, I would say it sounds impossible from the sound of it, I mean, again, nobody's perfectly balanced all the time. You're going to have bad days, of course. Everybody has bad days, and you don't know what, nobody's in control of the future or what happens to anyone. But like, as far as you go, like, I don't hear a voice on the phone of somebody who's going to carry that same baggage. And like, I hear the voice of somebody who's been in therapy and somebody who really cares about not letting this affect their kid. Your kid will get, sure, you and your kids will have bad days. Everybody does, but like, your kids are not going to get exposed to this toxicity. I feel very sure about that. Because you're saying it.
Really strange to hear.
Because you're saying it. And you're acknowledging it. You're calling it out, and you said it, that you don't want your kid to get exposed to it. So that leads me to believe you probably won't. You probably will do an excellent job at shielding your kid from that stuff.
Oh, thank you.
It'll be hard. And that's why I said the beauty is the challenge, because that means you're carrying that weight for your kid. And a lot of that will go unacknowledged. And it's a thankless journey. That's the hard part.
Yeah. But it's so worth it, man. When he wakes up and he's like, good morning, and little
Kids
eyes
are
are looking
amazing.
at me, and it's worth it.
So worth it. Yeah. Thank you so much for calling. We need to wind down the stream tonight, but I do want you to call back again anytime. I enjoyed hearing your story, and thank you for using this place in this way. Really appreciated your story and the way you shared.
Thank you so much. What you're doing is amazing, and the way you're using this platform is incredible. I've been a fan for a long time. Obviously, my computer icon is actually you in the Eat Randy video on the table. I said it when I was like 15, and it just stayed.
Forever, standing on the table on your computer.
You're my profile picture on my desktop.
I love it. I love it.
Yep.
That's probably my favorite video on the channel too. Thanks so much for calling and for the. I really appreciate your spirit, and I'm really excited to hear about the growth you're going to continue making. You've already made a bunch, and let's not forget that. And I'm wishing you the best as you continue on your journey, and hoping for a great update from you soon.
Well, thank you. I will keep working on it and being diligent.
Excellent. Call again anytime. Good night.
Good night, Julian.
My goodness. What a beautiful stream. I'm like, I have been on the verge of tears with every call tonight. In fact, I did tear up on the second call, and I had to hold it together. My goodness, you guys are amazing. Thank you, chat, for all the great suggestions. I couldn't get to everything. There was a lot of unpacking tonight, and I was just listening for most of it. So I called out a bunch of stuff, but I'm so glad this chat is here as a resource for callers. They every time we get a return caller, they're like, yeah, I went back and watched the chat at least once. So thank you for all the feedback and food for thought for these callers. And if it's anyone's first time here, we appreciate you being here. This is, of course, not entertainment or entertaining. It's very different. And we're constantly trying to figure out how best to do this here. So any feedback is appreciated. I try to go back through the chat and read feedback in the chat. But if you have any feedback that you really want me to see, join our Discord and send me a DM. My DMs in the Discord are open. I am able to read most of the messages I get there. I'd say I'm able to read 90% of them, and I'm able to respond to maybe like 20% of them. It's some kind of thing like that. But I do try to read as much of them as I can. And if you send me a message there with some feedback, odds are I will see it, and I'll take it in consideration. Want to make this a positive place for people, and we're constantly tinkering. Huge shout out to our mods. Thank you, Offcore. Thank you, Easy Cheesy. You guys are amazing. Thank you for keeping us on track tonight in the chat. And you guys are very tactful and respectful of everybody always. Thank you. It's a very fine line you guys walk in the chat. Thank you. Hope everybody understands the need for staying, the mods here to keep us on topic. We get so many people coming in just like spamming. Like, what do people gain out of coming in here and posting Malk with 9Ks? Like, I don't, what's the, it's not that I don't appreciate it. Like, in the other streams, it's fine. But, like, on this stream, I'm like, what's the point? Like, I don't understand. Like, can't they tell? Like, read the room. You know, like, can't you read the room? So, it's funny. All right, guys. I'm tuning out for the night. Thanks again for everything. And we do these 3 times a week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Central. And Unter Gang Girl. Yeah, I did ask for that, I guess. You guys are awesome. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.